This is Lehigh Valley Political Pulse. I'm Tom Shortell. Each week, political scientist Chris Borick joins me to discuss the latest scientific-based research related to public opinion. We dive into the local, state, and national levels and what it all means to you. Chris, this week, I'd like to find out how the sausage gets made. How many people do you need to hear from to make a scientifically accurate poll?
It's a great question, Tom, and it's always exciting to talk about methods. One of the biggest questions I always get is, well, how many is the right number for a poll? And there is no right number. There isn't a minimum sample size. There's not a needed sample size, a magic number, if you will. Sample size is one aspect of polling methodology that affects the likelihood that the estimates in a poll reflect the population. One of the big, I think, mysteries is it's not a linear relationship. So if you go from 500 in a poll to 1,000, it doesn't get twice as accurate. It gets more likely to be accurate or less error, or the size of the error, but not double the size. And that's why, if we do a poll with 500, I'm pretty comfortable. Margin of error, and again, we could talk about how you calculate it. For a poll like that, roughly, plus or minus 5.5 or so, depending on your weighting and other aspects, which are often overlooked when people do margin of error. But to me, that's comfortable. I could estimate a race, estimate something where it is in the public. If I doubled the number up to 1,000, margin of error is roughly about plus or minus 3. And so there is, again, no magic number. It's just how much uncertainty you want to deal with and what you're trying to apply it to.
And is that for any given race? Like if you're doing something here in PA 7, Northampton County, Lehigh County, Carbon, a little bit of Monroe, versus statewide, like a U.S. Senate race or a governor race?
Yeah, this is one of the things that I have the hardest time convincing students and also the public. The sample size of 1,000 in Lehigh County or a sample size in 1,000 nationally is going to produce the same margin of error. I want to make an analogy that I often use. If we were testing soup, taste testing, right? And I say, oh, Tom, I've got a bowl of soup. What would you use to sample soup? How would you taste it?
You get a spoon?
A spoon, right? All right. Say I had a big trough of soup, a gigantic cauldron, and I stirred it up with an oar or a gigantic stick. And I said, Tom, taste the soup. What would you taste it with?
Still use the spoon.
Would you use a bigger spoon?
I would not.
You wouldn't. And that's how sampling goes, right? You're taking as long as it's randomized, everything is there. The sample comes out the same size, gives you the same taste of the big product.
I guess that might be a good a good entry to my next question is, how much trust should people have in any particular poll?
I think people affix unreasonable precision to polls. So one of it is, what do we expect from polls? And any given poll, I'm very proud of our work at Muhlenberg. I think we've done some great polling over the last quarter of a century. But anytime I put a poll out, it's one data point. I'd say, where does it fit in with the broader picture? Are we an outlier? Is it kind of aligning with these things? So I'd put, modest stock in any single poll.
So with that in mind, what polls do you watch? Which polls do you trust and look at?
It's another question. I love, looking at pollsters that I really think have a proven track record, are transparent in their methods. In other words, they could show you everything they're doing and you could look under the hood and see it. So there's a lot. For example, the New York Times Siena polls, I think, are outstanding. I think polls of places like Monmouth and Marist are great. ABC News has a wonderful track record of really solid polls. Pew, who doesn't do a lot of election polling, in my mind is a gold standard of American public polling. Their methods, they're incredibly thoughtful in how they put out in terms of issue studies and others.
Very good. Chris, thank you. Chris Borick is a professor of political science at Muhlenberg College. This has been Lehigh Valley Political Pulse. I'm Tom Shortell. For an extended version of this interview, visit LehighValleyNews.com.